Hey everyone, this is Ryan Bush. Okay, so today I wanted to deal with a comment that was posted on my Jimmy Johnson video, the video dealing with the fallout between Jimmy Johnson and Jerry Jones. This person posts the comment, and my credibility as a researcher is questioned. It is, this story about Jimmy Johnson and Wayne Weaver of the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm not even going to get it. There's certain things that are expressed in this comment that aren't exactly how it actually happened. Okay, this person portrays the story in a way it's not quite accurate, but I could spend a whole day talking about that, and I'm not even gonna get into that. But I want to say something about Jimmy and Jerry, okay? Because sometimes people act like because in this video that I expressed that Jerry was ultimately at fault, that somehow I'm denying any wrongdoing on Jimmy's part, and that's really not true. Um, Jimmy wasn't perfect in this, and I'll never say he was. Ultimately, though, it was Jerry's fault. But I want to get to something here. Because there are so many things, so many presumptions from this comment that can twist your perception of reality, of history, of how it happened. Okay, so this is something that bugs me. Okay, supposedly, according to this individual, I did not, by not mentioning this Jacksonville Jaguars saga with Jimmy, that I somehow left something important out. That I somehow was trying to ignore something, supposedly ignore something that Jimmy did that was um, below the belt, shall we say. And here's the deal. Okay, my video was originally, it was intended to deal with the very end of their divorce, how it all ended. And I can't mention everything. This deal with the Jaguars doesn't change anything, okay? It's not a standalone event, okay? And I cannot repeat that enough. This one instance was not a standalone event. Jimmy did this. He flirted with the Jaguars, but there was a buildup, okay? Jimmy, over the last 2 years, had in the office of the Cowboys at Valley Ranch, he'd get mad at Jerry for whatever reason. It varied with Jerry. And he'd go around yelling, I'm going to take this staff here, there, wherever. If Jerry doesn't cut it out, I'm out of here. Jerry heard about some of these threats, okay? And you have to keep it in context. So, generally, I'm going to give you a general build up to this instance with the Jaguars. 1993, man, you talk about animosity between Jimmy and Jerry. It was very real. Jerry would show up at practice during the week, and it's like ice between head coach and owner. Those two don't want to. Jimmy doesn't want to be around Jerry, and the players could see it. Okay, and it just continued all through the season. And the deal was, Jerry was always trying to be the guy, and Jimmy, he's got his foot. He's kicking all his players in the butt, trying to keep them focused, trying to repeat for another Super Bowl. And he's trying to keep him focused. Hey, Jimmy, focus on what the head coach says, not this clown owner over here. But Jerry keeps pushing and pushing. And one of the things that's interesting here, okay, and I don't actually know if Jimmy was like livid upset, but I know he wasn't pleased with the way Jerry handled the contract extension of Troy Aikman. Jerry pays Troy like $50 million. Troy's like the richest guy in the NFL. And Jerry makes a big deal about it. He's like down in the field with Troy before the Cowboys Redskins game, the second to last regular season game in '93. And Jerry's just the big benefactor. And he's one of the good guys. He's taking care of the Cowboys' long term financial problems by getting in time to get it under the salary cap. And supposedly there's a bunch of money front loaded, so it's not going to affect the Cowboys too badly in '94, '95, and so on. He's the good guy, blah, 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 blah. And if you know the locker room, okay, Jerry's already the bad guy for lying to Jimmy about the Emmitt Smith holdout. Jerry told Jimmy that he would have Emmitt signed before the regular season, but He tries to prove a point that he's a hardline negotiator, and it spills over into the regular season. Jimmy says, okay, that the team wasn't prepared, okay, to start that year without Emmett. And he doesn't always mention this, but he has mentioned it before, that the reason they weren't prepared is because he was always expecting Emmett to be there. And why was he expecting it? Because Jerry told him that's what would happen. And Cowboys come out the gate that year kind of flat. They're 0-2. Emmett winds up finally signing because basically Jimmy was livid after that second game that lost to Buffalo. And there was some pressure on Jerry, to get the deal done anyway. But Jimmy was really, boy, he was ticked off at Jerry. And the deal finally gets done because it was obvious to everybody that the Cowboys needed Emmett to put it back together. But so the players knew that Jerry was more interested in saving a buck, saving image, blah blah, all that deal, and he wasn't about winning. But here he comes along, signs Troy, and he's like, "Yeah, I got the deal done." All this pomp, this show, this pageantry, as if he's like I said, the benefactor of success in Dallas, and that wasn't the case at all. I think that had something to do with what Jimmy did with the Jaguars there, kind of flirting with them a little bit. And look, Jimmy, why would he even do that? Why would he even throw his hat in the ring, supposedly to be the Jaguars coach in '95? Okay, now first of all, why he would actually do it, to go ahead and do that act, it's one more step. All this time, Jimmy's been making these threats about, I'll take this staff with me to Tampa Bay, wherever. Now he's going to take it another step because Jerry's obviously not listening. And with Jerry, you always have to be on the aggressive to get your point across. And so here he goes. He's going to take this threat a step further and actually talk with an incoming franchise. The Jaguars were the incoming expansion team. And it was meant to get Jerry's attention, and it did. So I mention all this because the Jaguars deal, like I said, it wasn't just an isolated instance in time without any context. And look at I'm not saying what Jimmy did was right, okay, by flirting with the Jaguars, but what I am saying is that Jimmy, in this instance with the Jaguars, Jimmy is unloyal, disloyal, whatever word you want to use. But remember that Jerry behind the scenes is being just as unloyal, and even in many cases more so, because Jerry likes to say in this instance when he addressed the Jaguars situation to the press, well, that Jimmy's under a 10-year contract here. Yeah, well, let's consider the context that behind closed doors, Jerry's not honoring this 10-year contract. He's been trying to change it, and he's actually stepping over the lines into Jimmy's authority and doing all sorts of stuff, trying to be the leader, the guy, the big football guy. And Jimmy wasn't having any of it. And over the years, things build up, which led to this. Pretty much from the beginning of the '91 season, there was a trickle-down effect all the way to this instance where Jimmy flirted with the Jaguars. So for me to ignore this in my video, okay, and not mention the supposedly the salty details, it doesn't do anything that this writer, this individual, suggested. I didn't, miss anything necessarily pertinent that would balance out the story between Jimmy and Jerry. No, it was a continuation, okay? I'll never say that Jimmy was perfect in all this. He was a jerk some of the time, plenty of the time. But Jerry was the one who instigated it. He started this rift, and he continued and continued and continued. Being in control was more important to Jerry Jones than winning a three-peat. He could have kept Jimmy, and the Cowboys stood a better chance to win a three-peat than they did with Barry Switzer. But that wasn't what he wanted. And which puts into context all of what Jerry was doing. Because remember, as I said in the video, Jerry could have had Jimmy for one more year, and then had leave town. But no, the contract was shortened by 5 years, by 4 years here. He had got Jimmy to agree to shave 4 years off, but no, that wasn't good enough. He wanted them gone now because he wanted all the glory. He didn't want the narrative to say that it was all Jimmy, or Jimmy was the big guy in the room. He wanted to be at least on equal footing with Jimmy Johnson, and he went for it all, kicked Jimmy out the door, and that's that. So keep that in mind. Like when you see certain things, people bring certain stories about Jimmy and Jerry up that maybe make Jerry look bad or Jimmy look bad. Keep it in context. There's a big buildup with a big catastrophic ending that we're dealing with that tells the whole story. Okay, it's not just one standalone event, because people, we have a tendency to do this in this culture. We read one little snippet of an article here, and we come to all sorts of wild conclusions that don't really fit into just reality. And one more thing. So he mentions in this comment, there's a mention about distractions. Okay, that Jimmy made a distraction for the team, which was the one thing he always preached against. No. Like I said, Jerry was the bad guy. Even in the locker room. Emmitt Smith. You guys need to go back and read some of these articles back here. Emmitt Smith did not like Jerry Jones. I mean, he did not. He's talking smack about Jerry to the press. Woo. So don't even buy this idea that Jimmy somehow, oh my goodness, look what Jimmy did. He was maybe going behind Jerry's back here and thinking about going to Jacksonville. No. That the players knew what was going on pretty much. Jerry's the bad guy. So there was no distraction here. This little story had been going on all season long between Jerry and Jimmy. Players knew what was going on. This wasn't going to be a distraction at all. If anything, it solidified their mental state to go get it done against the Giants and get home field advantage and make the run to the Super Bowl. Because, hey, they knew the way things were going with Jimmy and Jerry, it wasn't guaranteed that Jimmy was going to be here forever, 2 years from then, So no distraction. I don't buy that at all. That's not the way the vibe was in the locker room at all. So anyway, yeah, I just wanted to address the comment. So many a few different layers to address that are, it's easy to read the comment and things are kind of suggestive, but they don't really fit into the true history of how it went down between Jimmy and Jerry.